The first of 4 races in 5 weeks brings Mugello GP to its fastest track on the calendar for round 9 in 2025. We're in Mugello in Italy's jaw-dropping Tuscany region, which is world-renowned for its culture, cuisine and spectacular countryside. Marc Marquez powers his 100th career pole position qualifying ahead of his quest to win an 8th sprint this season. It's time for MotoGP. So the Mugello circuit, sandwiched in between the beautiful cities of Bologna and Florence on the Grand Prix calendar for nearly 40 years. Started here all the way back in 1976. The layout, a spectacular one and fast one at that, has remained unchanged in those 39 years since. Sector 1 includes the viciously high braking zone down into San Donato, turn 1. Turn 8 and 9, Arrabbiata 1 and 2. Real fast and demanding corners, certainly for that front tyre here in Mugello. It's turn 1 and 4 and 15, which give the front tyre the biggest test around this Mugello circuit. Just over 5 kilometres in length means there are lots of overtaking opportunities. This was a real close call. The Marquez brothers, Luca Marini and Jack Miller fighting it out for the podium 2 years ago in San Donato. So what, 13 days ago now at his beloved motorland Aragon, Marc Marquez completed the most dominant weekend in MotoGP in 10 long years since he ran right at the Saxon Ring back in 2015. His 7th victory in front of his adoring home crowd means Marc Marquez 32 points clear now in the World Championship. Pecco Bagnaia finding some confidence with the front end of his factory Ducati as he fought Pedro Acosta early on for 3rd place. A good battle between Fermin Aldeguer and Frankie Morbidelli for the top 5. But as has been the case so often down the years, Marc Marquez once again the master of Motorland had his bid for an 8th sprint in the opening 9 rounds of 2025. Well, that launches from pole position. The number 93 on course potentially for win number 93 in our feature Grand Prix here in Mugello tomorrow. Well, it's already the century up in Tuscany. Marc Marquez, if you joined us for Q2 this morning, yet another record-breaking qualifying session. A 1:44.169, which was nearly 4/10 inside the 2024 all-time lap record, secured Marc Marquez his 100th career pole position. What a stat that is. No rider in Grand Prix history since it all began back in 1949 has got even close to making a century of poles. But of course, pole positions are great, TISO watches are great, which come with those poles, but Marc Marquez will be eager to increase that 32-point lead in the World Championship. He's joined on another all-Ducati front row, of course, in Ducati's home Grand Prix. Their headquarters, about an hour's drive up the road, weaving and snaking through the spectacular Tuscany mountains to Borgo Panigale on the outskirts of Bologna. Pecco Bagnaia, who was undefeated in our 2 previous sprints here in Mugello, victorious in 2023 and in 2024. In fact, Bagnaia has not lost a race in Mugello since 2021. And most home fans are expecting big things from Bagnaia. He was close to a first pole position of the season this morning. Just under 600ths of a second he was behind his teammate Marc Marquez. With second in the World Championship, Alex completing your front row of the grid. Just 800ths splitting the top 3. Let's hope we're in for some cracking action in the 11-lap sprint coming up in about 25 minutes time. Looking forward to this one. Matt Burt and Lewis Sotheby in the commentary box with Jack Appleyard down in what is a sizzling hot pit lane. Ambient temperatures around the low to mid-30s already here this afternoon as we get set for sprint action in the Brembo Grand Prix of Italy. Can Marc Marquez spoil the Pecco Bagnaia party? Fabio Quartararo, of course, nursing an injured left shoulder after his crash in practice yesterday at turn 4. The Beast looking to bounce back from a pretty tough start in 2025 on the KTM Tech 3 machine. But Marc Marquez, Lewis, he has been the star of Sprint Saturdays throughout 2025 so far. 7 sprint victories from the opening 8 rounds. In fact, there's only been Alex Marquez that have won sprints so far in 2025. And it looks like, well, he's certainly one of the favourites to continue this golden run and fight for yet another gold medal.
Yeah, it's always interesting, isn't it, when Marc Marquez says at the end of Friday, as he said in Qatar earlier in the season, and he now said here, that he's potentially defending rather than attacking this weekend. Doesn't feel like Marc Marquez knows anything other than attacking, and we saw that earlier on today. A blistering lap to take pole position, the fastest ever MotoGP lap in Mugello on a 1:44.1 to take that historic 100th pole position across all Grand Prix classes, denying Pecco Bagnaia what would have been a memorable and very popular home pole position. Even though Marc Marquez races at Mugello in the red of Ducati for the first time, it does very much feel as if he's playing the role of party pooper here at Mugello. The vast majority of the support here in these grandstands is certainly for Ducati, but it's for the rider with the 63 rather than the 93.
28-year-old Italian, a season best qualifying in 2nd place, but this is very familiar territory so far this season for 32-year-old Spaniard Marc Marquez. From his previous 5 poles so far this season, he has gone to win all of the 5 sprints that followed. First Mugello pole position though for Marc since 2019. 4th pole in a row here for Ducati, who have been dominant on home turf in recent years. 32 points then is the lead for Marc Marquez going into this sprint. 233 he's collected from the opening 8 Grand Prix. It's been some start to life as a factory Ducati rider. So often, of course, here a public enemy #1 as the big rival to Valentino Rossi over many years. I think there's a divided opinion, I think, still about Marc with the Italian crowd, the Ducatisti, shall we say, as well. There he is, right on cue. 9 times world champion, to many the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Always great to see Valentino Rossi with us. We've seen him a couple of times already so far this season. And he comes to the Pertamina Enduro VR46 Racing Team garage for a little pep talk, a little pre-sprint chat with Frankie Morbidelli, who fires away from 6 on the grid.
He was very unlucky, actually, not to be a class winner at Le Mans last weekend. Was Valentino Rossi. His BMW 46 broke down while their team was leading during the night phase of that race. Here's another of his pupils, Marco Bezzecchi, who, of course, has shown good form so far this weekend, as he's looking to try and demonstrate progress that he and Aprilia thought they had made over time attack mode. Unfortunately, it didn't quite show up in qualifying earlier on today. Once again, Bezzecchi qualifying off the front 3 rows of the grid. Of course, it's not the same disaster that it was in Aragon a couple of weeks ago when he was back in 20th place, but once again, Bezzecchi starting lower than you reckon his actual race rhythm should put him on the grid.
Walking wounded, that's Fabio Quartararo, the 26-year-old Frenchman, walking wounded because he suffered a rather nasty blow to his left shoulder at turn 4 in practice yesterday. He did have to go for some precautionary medical checks in nearby Florence last night, where he was given the all clear. And despite feeling below par in terms of his peak physical best, Fabio Quartararo was still able to muscle that Monster Energy Yamaha machine around Mugello to the 4th fastest time this morning in Q2. Never has a Yamaha gone around this wonderful 5.2 kilometre circuit at the pace of Quartararo, 1:44.411, just a 10th away from yet another front row start in 2025. Of course, 11 laps will be painful and uncomfortable for him this afternoon. Double the distance over 23 laps in the main Grand Prix tomorrow. As you mentioned this morning, it's going to be a teeth-gritting exercise for Quartararo for the remainder of this Italian Grand Prix.
Particularly given how much you use your body to manhandle these motorcycles around a circuit, any circuit, but particularly one as fast and physical as this one. And I think what Quartararo will also be concerned about going into the sprint today, but also for tomorrow's Grand Prix, is just how weak Yamaha have been, relatively speaking, in that 4th sector with the drive out of Pacini down the long start-finish straight. He is, of course, surrounded on the grid by Ducatis and KTMs, which no doubt have a straight line speed advantage over his Yamaha.
2nd in the World Championship, and a whole bunch of 2nd place have got him into that great position so far after 8 rounds. Alex Marquez, the 29-year-old Spaniard, is 8th front row coming up shortly in the opening 9 races. 16 sprints and Grand Prix so far this year. He's been on the podium. Well, he's been 2nd in 11 of them. leading the KTM charge, and potentially you feel one of the major threats to Ducati triumphing on home soil is Red Bull KTM Tech 3 rider Maverick Vinales, fastest on Friday afternoon, fastest on Saturday morning in FP2. Really did expect Maverick to be in the hunt for the front row of the grid. He starts from an equal season best 5th place. Keep an eye on Vinales because race pace has not been an issue, and we know if he can get away in that lead group, well, down the start-finish rate, the KTM is a rocket ship. It's the fastest motorcycling Grand Prix history, so keep a very close eye on Vinales. You feel in both the sprint this afternoon and the main Grand Prix tomorrow, he could upset the Ducatis.
It's such an overtaking trump card, isn't it, when you've got 2 or 3 kilometres an hour minimum over the bulk of the riders around you on the grid. Vinales once again top KTM, 1 row ahead of Pedro Acosta. Here he is, right on cue, who starts from 8th place. Of course, we have seen Pedro Acosta fall short in qualifying on previous occasions this season when he's had to start from 12th on the grid, but KTM once again continuing some of the momentum and performance that they displayed in Aragon last time out, and Pedro Acosta, speaking yesterday, was confident that a podium challenge was within him.
A couple of two-wheel legends in slightly different disciplines, but great to see once again Mark Cavendish, the record-breaking Tour de France star. Carl Cox, of course, who's, we know, a huge MotoGP fan, the world-renowned DJ. He's very close with Valentino Rossi. What a picture that is. Carl Cox, who runs road racing teams back in the UK. Valentino Rossi, of course, the undisputed MotoGP legend, the legend of Mugello for so many years. 7 successive wins here for the 7 times MotoGP world champion, soaking up the atmosphere. I know that Valentino and Carl Cox have had a fair few good parties down the years. Great to see them just enjoying the build-up to this sprint. Valentino's boys, Morbidelli goes from 6th, Fabio to Gian Antonio. He heads row 3 in 7th.
I'm sure you've noticed the different colours that Valentino Rossi is wearing today. Those will be reflected on the VR46 Ducatis in tomorrow's full-length Grand Prix. There is a special livery coming as part of a tie-up with Italian singer Cesare Cremonini, who is touring Italy right now. Jack Miller then starts from 13th place. He came within fractions of a second, hundredths of a second away from joining Quartararo and Rins for Yamaha in Q2 earlier on today. He was just nudged down in the closing stages by Raul Fernandez. Miller absolutely riding beyond the limit of that Yamaha at the moment. 13th on the grid for the Aussie. It will be a tall order, you feel, from there in the middle of the pack of Ducatis, Aprilis and KTMs to drag that Yamaha into the points. Riding for his future as well. Massive, huge pre-Mugello news, of course. Confirmation that double World Superbike champion Toprak Razgatlioglu has already got one of the Pramac seats available in 2026. Looks like it's just a straight shootout now between Miller and his current teammate Miguel Oliveira. Well, Brad Binder, his Italian Grand Prix in 2025, got off to a great start. 3rd quickest he was in the Friday morning action. It's been a bit of a slippery slope since for the South African. Crash at turn 2 in practice yesterday left him 18th. 14th this morning and only 15th on the grid for the Red Bull KTM factory rider. Only once so far this year has Binder qualified inside the top 10. He really has struggled so far this year to get anything out of a soft tyre on a Saturday morning. Yeah, he often says that he's got potential to be much higher up the grid than he is. It just doesn't quite come together for Binder in qualifying. He'll be looking to move forward in this sprint. Reminder, the Tissot sprint here this afternoon will be over 11 laps of Mugello in front of a feverish and passionate Italian crowd, of course, with an all Ducati front row. But it would certainly be clear to most of us when we look across the commentary box window into the grandstand who the majority of those wearing red in the grandstand have their eyes on. Yes, the last 3 Grand Prix and the last 2 sprints here in Mugello, there's been competition over 91 laps. Pecco Bagnaia has led 81 of them. That's why he has been so super strong. Practically untouchable, let's be fair, over the last 3 years here in Mugello. But we haven't really seen him so far in 2025 lock horns, go toe-to-toe and beat Marc Marquez. Of course, he's won his solitary Grand Prix victory of the season. Was a bit of a present from Marc when he threw it down the road. A couple of seconds clear in Austin in Texas. But here we go, now the countdown is well and truly underway.
baking hot conditions here in just a spectacular part of Italy, a spectacular part of the world. If you've got a bucket list of Mugello GP events you are planning on attending in the future, well, we highly recommend that you try and work out some way in the future to get yourself to Mugello, because it is a site that you really have to see up close and personal yourself. One rider who knows exactly what it takes to win around Mugello, because he did it for fun back in the day. It is the one, the only, Valentino Rossi, and he's with Jack.
Yeah, he is indeed. Great way to kick off the sprint with Valentino down here with us. A solid qualifying from both your guys. Back of the second row, front of the third row. What can both Fabio and Frankie do in this one, Valentino?
Yes, it's difficult because a lot of riders have a great pace. But our starting position is not too bad, especially Franco is in second row, but also Diza is there. They need to, if they are able to gain 1 or 2 position in the first laps, after we can make a good race.
Just how nice it is as well to see Pecco looking like Pecco out on track at the moment.
Yeah, it looks like that can be a very good battle, because Pecco is in a great shape and they did a very good lap. Very curious to see the race. I hope that he can be competitive.
Great to see you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, always great to hear from the doctor. Trust us, we're all curious to see if Pecco Bagnaia can go with Marc Marquez. Marc and Alex have just completely dominated the Saturday afternoon action so far this year. 7 sprint wins to Marc, 1 so far to Alex. Can Pecco Bagnaia add to his sprint winning tally of 11? Got to go all the way back to the final Grand Prix of 2024 in the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, for the last time he tasted or picked up a gold medal on sprint Saturdays.
I feel so much will be decided in that exhilarating run down to San Donato. It's always one of the more thrilling starts of the season, and they're all thrilling, of course, watching 22 of the best riders in the world on the best motorcycles in the world powering up to the first corner. Well, Pecco Bagnaia generally has had issues when he has been following in a pack. He will desperately want to avoid that scenario. You'll feel his best way of beating Marc Marquez is to get ahead of him at the start and try and pull clear. Whether he'll have the speed to do that, knowing how strong Marc Marquez is, we shall see. But it certainly does feel Pecco Bagnaia's best opportunity in a Saturday sprint so far this year.
Yeah, it's an expectant crowd. It's a pretty big crowd as well here at Mugello on Saturday. They've been pouring through the gates since about 7 o'clock this morning, and they are here to see if Pecco Bagnaia can continue his great reign of success here. But it is Marc Marquez then. He has done it now 99 previous times in his career, and for the 100th time. What a record, what a stat for the Spaniard. He will start at the front of the grid. I think he's got like over 30 pole positions more than the next best pole starter in history. I think that was Jorge Lorenzo, around sort of 69, 70 poles. It's just an astonishing record for Marc Marquez. Red versus red, isn't it, in terms of the front row? As Marc just trying to get a bit of shade, get a bit of protection. You can just see on the infield and the sort of the grass perimeters around this Mugello circuit how scorched the grass is. We're sort of in the midst of a bit of a European heat wave here as we come towards the back end of June. Of course, this time next week it'll be time for sprint action in one of our most historic and classic events, one we all look forward to, the Cathedral of Speed in Assen next weekend, where once again Pecco Bagnaia will be hunting a 4th consecutive success.
How super strong he is around Assen. He absolutely destroyed the field from Friday morning to Sunday afternoon last year. Both Marc Marquez and Pecco Bagnaia are heading off for a quick pre-sprint comfort break as they disappear off the grid and leave their team to make some changes and make the final adjustments. Of course, there's been so much talk of brake discs with Pecco Bagnaia where he's concerned, since the change to the 355mm brake disc made a difference to his fortunes in Aragon. It's not really a configuration that is best suited to a circuit such as Mugello, so Pecco Bagnaia has had to make do with the more traditional and more conventional 340s here this weekend. But he has looked pretty strong, particularly on low fuel on a soft rear tyre. He had some issues on Friday morning, the bike behaving in some unusual ways, which certainly irked the 2-time world champion. But as we've seen throughout this weekend, he genuinely looks like he's got the speed, but can he deliver it over 11 laps here?
Maverick Vinales, fascinating to see what the Spanish rider can do, not just in this sprint this afternoon, but also in the main Grand Prix tomorrow, because he really has been consistently the only rider that's really able to pose what looks like a strong threat to Ducati's domination here in Mugello. He fires away from the middle of the second row in 5th. Fabio Quartararo, of course, just wonder whether perhaps a little bit of fatigue and a little bit of, once the adrenaline starts to wear off, how he'll fare going from 4th place on the grid. But I think KTM, Tech 3 in particular, and so many of us here in Mugello are expecting big things from Vinales. We know how fast off the line the KTM is, and with that top speed in his hand, do not discount Vinales from potentially upsetting this heavyweight front row.
Which is Marc Marquez, Pecco Bagnaia and Alex Marquez, the top 3 in the World Championship. Quartararo, Vinales and Morbidelli is your second row. Did Gian Antonio, who had some illness to contend with yesterday, start 7th ahead of Pedro Acosta with the hard front tyre on his KTM, and Alex Rins. Marco Bezzecchi, Raul Fernandez, Fermin Aldeguer is your 4th row. Fernandez and Aldeguer came through Q1. Jack Miller, who missed out Q1, is joined by Joan Zarco and Brad Binder on row 5, and Air Bastianini, Miguel Oliveira and Joan Mir together on row 6. Not a strong qualifying for Honda here. Takuma Kagami, Lorenzo Savadori and Ayagora on row 7, ahead of Sonket Chandra in 22nd, all on the soft rear tyre. Pedro Acosta, the sole rider, on the hard front.
Well, we've heard from a MotoGP legend from Italy. We can now go and hear from a bona fide football superstar in this part of the world. 2006 Italian World Cup winning captain Fabio Cannavaro joins Jack down on the grid.
Yeah, he does indeed. The man that's going to be waving the checkered flag later as well. Great to have Fabio on the grid. Firstly, are you a MotoGP fan? What do you make of the experience so far, Fabio?
It's my first time here and so happy, and I feel this energy is incredible. And you know, when you see the real my bike is insane. They are amazing. They perform very well, and they have a big courage.
Absolutely. I'm sure, like most, you were a Valentino Rossi fan throughout the years. So what is it like to feel the emotion of the Italian fans here? They've got so many to cheer for today.
We are at home, and you know, also Valentino. I saw him before. Valentino for us was Maradona for you know, for the MotoGP, and he make us so proud. But now we need someone that make us proud again.
Absolutely. Well, great to see you here. Enjoy the day.
So much. Bye-bye.
Yeah, fantastic to hear from Ballon d'Or winner Fabio Cannavaro, one of the best central defenders in history in football. I'm sure when the fans see him, we're getting a great reception. Just noting, as Lewis mentioned, Lewis noted that Pedro Acosta has the hard front tyre. Memory serves me right, he was the only rider in the main Grand Prix in Aragon that ran the hard front as well, so clearly Acosta does favour at the moment that sort of slightly harder compound, gives him that little bit of extra support in straight up and down braking. He's happy obviously to sacrifice a bit of turning on the KTM to be a little bit stronger in that braking zone. As turn 1, turn 4, turn 15 are the hard braking zones. We're just being told that helicopter shot peering off into the distance, that not too far away. Let's hope that it doesn't affect us here in Mugello, but not too far up into the distance. Of course, we're in the spectacular Tuscany Mountains, where the weather can be pretty changeable. It can change very, very quickly, but we are told in the distance there's a bit of rain around the local area. We've got everything crossed that it doesn't disrupt this 11-lap sprint coming up. As you mentioned then, huge hopes, big expectations for Maverick Vinales, going from the middle of that second row in 5th place. What are the thoughts of his boss, Nico Goyon? He's with Jack.
Yeah, he is indeed. Just on what you were saying about the weather guys as well, it was the guys down at KTM that told me similar. There is a little bit of a weather front, but they're hoping the wind direction will keep it just to the left of the circuit, but one to keep our eye on. Another one to keep our eye on is Maverick Vinales, Nico. I mean, what a weekend so far. He's been fast in every session, got the job done late on in qualifying. What's possible here?
Yeah, indeed, it's a good weekend. We really hope to be on the second row, and that's what we achieved this morning. So we're kind of happy. Clearly, we're going to target the top 5. I mean, this is our aim, and we really believe, considering all the lap time and the pace, that we can achieve this top 5. And then more than that will be difficult, but we're here to fight, so we will do.
Saw the KTM guys this morning experimenting with the medium rear. Will anyone use it for the sprint?
Well, in the end, it was the similar job at the other one, but just in the opposite direction. In the end, we tried both tire, and anyway, in this sprint is going to be soft. So question mark will be for tomorrow.
Thanks, Nico.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks to Tech 3 boss Nico Goyon. Yeah, it's pretty much a full year now since Vinales was on a sprint podium all the way back at Assen. Then, of course, he was a factory Aprilia rider, well in excess of 12 months now since the 30-year-old was victorious in a sprint when he had that unforgettable weekend at the Circuit of the Americas over in Austin, Texas. Well, it's been a brilliant Saturday so far for Ducati Lenovo team, hasn't it? 1 and 2 on the grid, at 100th pole position for Marc Marquez. Let's get some pre-sprint thoughts from their boss, Davide Tardozzi, who joins Jack.
Davide, since the move was announced that Marc was going to be joining the factory team, we've been waiting for a head-to-head battle between him and Pecco. Are we finally going to see it?
Yeah, I hope so. I got the finger that happens, but I think that there are at least 6 riders that can fight for the podium. KTM will be fast on the straight, so if they have a good start, I think that they can fight for the podium with 3 Ducati on top.
Thanks, Davide.
Yeah, thanks to Ducati boss Davide Tardozzi. Of course, Ducati have just pretty much got accustomed to winning on home soil. That is off into the distance then. Our weather forecast here in the commentary box, which don't tend to have a great accuracy. They're suggesting a bit of rain, maybe some potential thunderstorms through the evening here in Mugello. Nothing to suggest, though, that weather front that's just off there in the distance is going to have any impact on the 11-lap sprint, which is due for lights out in just over, well, pretty much bang on 3 minutes time now. Joan Zarco, 14th place. Yeah, Joan Zarco won't care, will he, if it starts pouring down with rain after what happened in front of his home crowd, a record home crowd, a record GP crowd, of course, in Le Mans a few weeks ago. Tough last couple of rounds, though, for Zarco. Didn't score a single point last time out in Aragon. Aragon DNF in the GP as well was his first in 24 rounds since Jerez 2024. Of course, that all coming off the back of him being the first Honda rider in 4 years to score back-to-back podiums. So the front row of the grid, as this, well, they're all gone for the medium front soft rear tyre. Alex Marquez. Can it be another second place? Can it be a second sprint victory of the season for the Gresini racing rider? Pecco Bagnaia, season best grid position for the Italian, the home hero, going for a 3rd successive sprint success here in Mugello. He's second, but from his 100th career pole position, it's Marc Marquez who leads the field away here in Tuscany.